Hello, my marketing and entrepreneur friends. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Let's Talk Marketing podcast, where I, your host, Tate, get to explore the latest trends, techniques, and strategies in this world of marketing. Now, in this episode, I chat with Garik, Tate, an AI futurist, investor, and AI strategy consultant with over a decade of experience in entrepreneurship and technology. Now, we get into how to leverage AI for growth and the practical applications of AI in marketing, including how it's transforming cold outreach, customer targeting, and personalization. He has a sweet spot for cold outreach, which is helpful for both sales and marketing. Now, his unique approach combines cutting-edge technology with a deep understanding of human behavior, which allows you to really make smarter decisions, increase your reach, and scale efficiently. Now, what you'll love to hear is how he looks at automating repetitive tasks. He talks about improving cold email strategies and really making marketing efforts more effective without losing that human touch. AI can really impact your marketing for the better, and he'll share just how. So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into it. Let's talk marketing. Garik, welcome to the Let's Talk Marketing podcast. Really excited to have you on here today. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is AI and practical applications of AI in marketing. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Katya. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's have the audience get to know you a little bit. I've got some starter questions. My first starter question is, what was your first marketing role? And marketing could have been in the title or it couldn't have been. I love the responses here. To hear how you are going to interpret this will be fantastic. So what was your first marketing role?
So my first marketing role was adjusting. I don't know if you know Jeff Walker's product launch formula, but it was a guidebook for how to launch products. It was mostly used inside of the internet marketing world back in like the 2000s for primarily information products, but a few other types. And my team's background was in that for information products, and we were going into publishing. So we wanted to launch fiction books. Imagine, paranormal romance.
The usual.
Yeah, exactly. The tweens, they want to read about dating vampires, werewolves. Twilight was blowing up, and so
got
it. A lot of authors that had the big audiences in the fiction space with paranormal romance, and so I got to write like a 16-year-old, fanfic writer, but taking the really sophisticated concepts from Jeff Walker's product launch formula and applying it to those fiction books. And so I still remember probably overdoing it with the tweenage, but the launches, we got in the top 100 of Amazon books, and so it was successful. I remember that.
Amazing. Well, that's your origin story. Tell me about where you're at now. What do you currently do?
Yeah. So after that point, the path was, we now know how to launch these books. So it was my first full-time gig was with our publishing company, and the publishing company, it's still around, still successful. But then the name of the game became, how can we get more authors? So we don't charge our authors any money, but we only make money if the books make money, which means we have to have a very high caliber author to make money. So attracting those really high caliber authors is the name of the game. We can't publish just about anybody. So it became all about cold outreach. How do we find these people? How do we convince them? How do we jump on calls? And mastering that game. And I realized that I actually enjoyed that medium even more than I enjoyed the posts and the social media and any of that. I liked cold email because of how much control it gave you. You could send out 100 emails of one type and then send 100 emails the next day, and just that A/B split testing was so much more pure. I really took to it. And so built up the publishing company with that, built a few other divisions, a few other companies, all on the back of cold outreach. But I kept running into this problem where I really hated everything about it after the campaign launched, because after
Yeah.
you set it up, basically either I had to send 100 emails. In the beginning, I had to send like 100 emails a day, or very rapidly had to oversee teams of people sending 100 emails every day each. But in both times, it was just a grind. Like, just the nature of it is such a grind, and there's a lot of whip cracking and like, okay, do we hit these targets? Do we track hitting the targets? I loved creating the dashboards to track it. I loved creating the strategy. I loved writing the copy. I loved finding the emails and enriching the data. I loved all of it except for like, why didn't we hit 100 emails, and just treating people like cogs in a machine.
Yeah.
Despised it. But I loved treating machines like machines. I loved working with these numbers, and so pivoted. That those companies are still growing, but brought up some CEOs. They're now running those companies. Still the co-founder of those companies, but now don't have to run them day over day. And I pivoted over to focusing on software development and really became much more of a product guy and a lot more of a building out software applications, primarily with AI. This is 6 years ago, so first things were with machine learning, neural nets, and then now that ChatGPT is out, we started building some applications for clients with AI built into the product. But I realized as we're thinking to ourselves, what's a product we can build internally? What's a service we can start providing that's more productized? And I came back to cold email, and I realized that the part that I really hated could now be automated. I could treat the people like people and treat the machines like machines and scale the organization. And so I've been essentially almost fully obsessed with using marketing in cold email at this point for about the last little bit, and so far getting pretty good results.
Excellent. So I feel like you've already said kind of the thing that you like about it, or not even like, what you love about. What is it that you truly love about what you currently do?
I I love the data pipeline aspect of it. I love the sense of
Okay.
control that you can know precisely who you want to target. Like if you're using um, Facebook ads or Google ads or posting social media content, um, you you don't always know exactly who you're targeting. But with cold email, you're not just you know exactly who, because you have their LinkedIn, you have their email, you know exactly who you're trying to reach out. You can be really sure this person is actually qualified, and then you can know exactly what it is that they're receiving when they receive it, when you send it. Now, there's definitely some downsides to cold email. I know marketing channel is perfect, but the sense of, if you just nerd out enough about it, there is this correct answer. Really appeals to kind of my more left brain thinking.
I love that. It basically scratches the nerd itch in you with the data portion of it. Now, I always ask the converse side of it. That's what you love about it. What could I pluck out if there's anything, if I had my wand and I'm like, Garik, let me pluck something out of your day to day, what would that be?
My day to day, like just what it looks like growing this stuff.
No, I want to know what I can remove from your job to make it perfect
Oh,
because
okay. What
nothing
I
is perfect.
dislike? Yep, yep, absolutely.
Yes, what you dislike. I was trying to have a positive spin on it, so it
I love
wouldn't
the
be like,
labor thing.
"What do you hate?"
Yeah,
But
this is something I
what,
can
if anything, could I
remove.
pluck out? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
remove,
plug it out, remove.
exactly.
Got it, got it.
I told you I'm at the end of my day, so I'm spicy.
If I had to remove something, um, the let me give the background of why this exists. And so the reality is, I wouldn't want to remove this, but it's a part I'm tackling head on right now. That's more annoying part of this whole thing. Is that
Mhm.
the since AI has grown so much more powerful for essentially this use case, the number of cold emails going out has increased. So essentially, the competition has been picking up.
Yeah.
Very has not really affected us too much because we bring in the unique skill set of being developers before this, so we can move faster than most people. So it hasn't affected us too much, but the competition has been increasing, and because the number of cold emails has increased, society, and when I say society, basically I'm talking about G Suite, Microsoft, Proofpoint,
Okay.
those emails. Their spam filters have had to increase their sensitivity so much that it can be difficult to land in the primary inbox. Particularly, it's harder to track whether or not you land in the primary inbox. There's some ways around that, but essentially you're playing a game of chess with the bigger platforms, which honestly, they're not really trying to block you. They're trying to block spammers that are sending out
Yeah.
phishing attacks. Phishing attacks. I still get a lot of emails from like in Russian and stuff like that ends up in my spam box. Like it's those people that are really abusing it that they're trying to block, but you can get caught up in that. And so that can be a bit frustrating because the dynamics are always changing. But we found some ways that I think we're cracking it that will, I think, crack it for a long time and we'll be able to iterate on top of. But that part is annoying because you don't get as clean of data as you used to like 6 years ago. It's harder to track
Yeah.
and stuff. So if I could remove that, I probably wouldn't. It's good for society. You know, we can't all be spammed out all the time. But if I could wave a magic wand and improve that part, that's a big money shot.
I like that. That's a positive spin on it. I'd like to improve on that. Now, I would imagine that being in the space that you are, that you have to really stay up to date on the trends. So, how do you stay up to date on the trends? Is it social media? Is it a newsletter? Is it, a podcast, a book? Like, how are you staying up to date on the trends?
Yeah, so I always go deep with fewer influencers and try to focus on like a few individuals I really respect.
Okay.
The biggest ones right now are probably Nick Abraham and Eric Nowoslowski. Kind of a weird last name to type in, but if you type in Eric cold email, he'll probably pop up. Those are two people whose content I follow pretty closely. And then if you want to join a community, Smart Lead is a sending platform that we use, and generally speaking, if most agencies, cold email agencies, use them. So even if you're not using them, you're generally speaking to a community that are the biggest power users. There's some reason why you might not want to choose Smart Lead, which we can talk about. But even if you don't use it as a platform, being in that community is really powerful. They have a Slack channel that I would also recommend
Mm-hmm.
people check out, and then they can see what people are posting, see what people are seeing, and then post questions and get a lot of support.
Love that. Now, before we dive into like really the nuts and bolts of like just practically using AI for marketing, and we'll get real specific and we'll focus just on like email, just so that we get some really great juicy insights from you. But I'd love to level set and have the audience just have a good understanding of when we're going to be talking about AI. We're not talking about chat GPT, like what we're typing in. We're talking about like the applications of it, the application of AI within a tool. So if you could break down a little bit of what that means, like that application portion, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So the way that I think about this is that there's two ways that AI can help our business. One is that essentially ChatGPT, you as an individual can now have a really great brainstorming buddy to sit down, think through ideas. It gives you a lot of power by just using ChatGPT. The other way is to use it in an automated way. So instead of you manually engaging with it, you have an automated process. And so to really use that, and I'm speaking, myself, I don't code. Can be technically proficient, but I actually don't know how to code. Um,
Okay.
but I use no code tools specifically. Most people are familiar with Zapier. I don't like
Yeah.
Zapier, but if you use it, more power to you. But I'm a huge fan of Make.com. I think it's just exactly the same as Zapier, but just better. There's a variety of
Mhm.
reasons I can talk about if you want, but I would recommend that. And with that no code tool, you can basically leverage the OpenAI's API and
Okay.
then create integration so that, for instance, one of the first ones I made is that every time we receive an email, we can take that email, give it to it's still essentially ChatGPT. It's not really ChatGPT. It's called it's just OpenAI 4.0, I think. Well, no, that is also the name of ChatGPT. I forgot what they call the model on the back end. There used to be DaVinci, but that was a different model set. But anyways, you query the API, and then that gives you back a response, and then you can essentially take that response and just dump it into your drafted reply, and then see how the AI would respond. Maybe another example is like every time that a lead, I'll use some non cold email examples. Every time a lead fills out a form, gives you their
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, what AI can do is it can scrape their LinkedIn and then create a summary as well as like 3 ways that your service could help them. So then right before the call, you can review what the AI learned about them and the AI suggestions, and that's just automated. Is it when something happens, it integrates on the back end, and then you can put AI into that integrated back end process.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great explanation, and I'm really excited that you also used a lead example because I think that that resonates with everyone. To me, what I hear is that it is really like the back end connection between the large language model of like an open AI that's gathering all of the information, and because of the application that you're putting it on, it's basically translating it for the purpose of that particular application, one that you're incredibly passionate about and you have based your career on specifically is email, right? And cold outreach email. So talk to me about cold outreach email specifically, and then we'll dive into how do you leverage AI for that personalization. So
Yeah.
let's start with cold outreach email. What does that mean?
So I'll give kind of our framework of how we think about what makes a successful cold outreach, and we'll kind of use that to reveal what it looks like to really set one of these up. So the first thing
Yeah,
is you need to have good product market fit. That just is true regardless of what marketing channel you use. You need to have good product market
very
fit.
true.
Um, Assuming you have that, then it starts off with targeting. You need to have a way of filtering your ideal client profile. The place to get started, if you don't know what to get started, is you try to create probably a LinkedIn Sales Navigator search where
Okay.
by searching keywords and using different filters, you can say, okay, everybody who's filtered here, I can assume is probably my ideal client profile. Maybe you're targeting publishers, so you target people inside the publishing industry with the name CEO in their title who have more than 5 years of experience and more than, let's say, like 10 employees. So that's a search. And then you can plug that search into a tool like Golden Leads or use something like Phantom Buster to scrape all of those LinkedIn's. And now you have your database of people you can contact. First, you need to get their emails, though, which LinkedIn doesn't easily give you the emails. So you would also use another tool like Better Contact Rocks or Prospeo, or there's a variety. Hunter.io used to be really big, if you know that one. There's a lot of tools out there that can find the email address of those people. So then you enrich it and you validate to make sure those emails are valid. There's some validation tools. Now you say, okay, I have my database, I have the emails, I know I'm targeting. Moves on to the next step. Then you need to make sure that it moves on to the step 3. So product market fit, targeting, and then deliverability is the third one. With deliverability, it basically means you need to set up the email accounts you're going to be sending emails from. You should not use your primary domain, because if you're using your primary domain and people mark you as spam, then your primary emails that you use to send to clients, those can end up in spam as well, which would be very bad. So you should always set up a secondary domain that's similar to your primary, and then send emails from that. There's a whole world there that I could dive into, but it's there's a lot of great videos out there you can also watch. But after the infrastructure is set up, then it moves on to the part that actually uses AI, which is that you need to use AI to personalize and create the copy that's going to be sent out. And that's probably what we'll dig into more in a second. But then the last step of a successful campaign is once the emails are being sent out, based on deliverability and the email copy is good, it's time that you have to manage the responses and guide people's responses to actually booking a call and going through your sales funnel. So those are the 5 kind of pillars of what makes a good campaign.
Do you have to worry about violating any email marketing rules by doing that? Or do you just avoid that because it is technically a one-to-one when you're sending those out?
Great question. So this will depend. We primarily target the Americas, which it's different inside of Europe. If
Yeah.
you're looking to target European countries, I would recommend looking up Lemlist guidelines,
Okay.
because Lemlist is itself one of the biggest marketing companies that offer this as a service, and they are based in France, which is obviously very much pushing GDPR. So I would look into what their saying if you want to target Europe. For the Americas, if you want to correspond with the CAN spam laws, the most important things are that if anyone replies, take me off your list or anything like that, that you then add them to your do not contact, your DNC,
Yeah.
and you should make that clear inside the email. So some people will add in a PS like, hey, if you don't want to hear from me back, just respond unsubscribe or do not contact or whatever. For us, the best advice we heard on this was actually from Lead Gen J, who recommends to avoid the text unsubscribe showing up in your thread, which algorithms can pick up on that. He suggests respond like with the word blueberry or something like that, something not obvious, but then still then taking them off the list. It also shows that they're actually reading the email, so that gives you valuable data. And then I believe you're also supposed to show the physical address. If you have an American address, you are supposed to add that as well. So if you're following that, should check out the requirements yourselves. But in broad strokes, those are some of the baseline things to match the laws.
Okay, good. I feel like that's always a question that I know that I get asked, and then I have to school people on like, okay, well, there are, because you can work with so many sales teams where they're like, well, just email everybody. Well, I can't actually just email everybody. That is going to be a violation. So I like that you've articulated what the rules are, and more specifically that you said don't send from your own domain, which can definitely lead to problems down the road in general. So we talked about, we laid the foundation, had the groundwork. We talked about some tips as to like how you even get started on curating this list. Now let's talk about the actual personalization of this email outreach, because I think typically people are thinking, oh, personalization, I will just put their name in here and maybe like one little quirky, like additional variable in this paragraph.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that you mean a lot more than that when you're talking about personalization and email outreach. So tell me, what are you talking about?
So yeah, with AI, you can end up personalizing the emails way more than a simple variable adjustments. So before, hi first name, that would be a variable. I saw company name on XYZ on LinkedIn. So those are just swapping out variables depending on the lead's info. But using AI, you can essentially, instead of making the variable just one sentence, you can make the variable an entire paragraph. So instead it would say, hi first name, paragraph 1. And then paragraph 1 was entirely written by AI before you move on to the part that's more static, so on and so forth. And the cleanest example I can give on that is that it depends on your product market fit. It depends on who you're targeting, how you found them, a variety of factors. But one that you can always do that applies to almost anything is you can say, hi, I saw your recent activity. So if you scrape their LinkedIn, you can say, I saw your post or your company's post, or if you scrape their your Instagram post or whatever, I saw your post on, and then summarize what the post said. And you can also
Okay.
use AI to say, was the post longer than 60 characters? Was it something business related? Was it non-political? You can use AI to clean up that data. And if it passes all that, then it summarizes the post. So it said, I saw your post on XYZ. And so I checked out your company and saw you help audience with this problem. And you can have the AI write all of that. So then I decided I wanted to reach out. So that's a personalized first line that shows that you're targeting them for a specific reason. It shows where you found them, and it's something that's very easy for AI to write. If you plug that into the first line of your email, your response rate will go up.
Yeah.
Another really clean area is to also add inside the PS. So you can use AI, for instance, scrape their website and look for their case studies or the success stories. And you can add in as a PS, hey, I saw your case study on helping, the puppies in San Francisco. I just want to say, kudos, or whatever it is, congratulating them. Those things definitely impact your campaign success. So far, when we've tested this, testing adding AI versus not adding an AI, we have very consistently, using these methods, doubled the number of responses and positive responses on a campaign using AI versus not using AI.
Interesting. So you've talked about the body and the PS. Also, side note, love that you had that you talked about, adding a PS. Additional side note, I'm pretty sure I've received many of these AI generated emails because that sounds really familiar because I know how consistently I am posting. So I'm like, wow, they went deep and they are incorrect as to like who I am, which is always really interesting. But you didn't mention subject line, and I think like the body of the email is fantastic, but if you can't get them to open it, which is, the heavy lifting of the subject line, then, you know, that's not
Yeah,
going to increase your open rates as well too. So do you suggest also leveraging AI from on the subject line? And if you do, what is some what would I put in that subject line? Because like, you know what I mean? Because
yep,
I'm
yep.
thinking, well, what you've said is great. Like it fills out an entire email, but a subject line, you have limited space.
Oh
So
yeah,
what are kind of some successes that you've seen from an AI perspective of like what you would fill in there to
great
get people
question.
to open?
So generally speaking, there's a principle here, which is, as the word count increases, the amount of personalization you can add also increases. 'Cause it makes sense. The bigger the email, the more chances you have to personalize.
Yeah.
Subject lines are so short, it's significantly harder. So the we don't use AI so much inside the subject line, but our best practices are you should send an email subject line that they would preferably expect to see from either a coworker or a client. Not being
Okay.
misleading, but it should be something where if they like one that was very classic, it does not work anymore, but one that worked for a long time was just quick question. You would add in quick question, and then people would you'd expect to see that from just about anybody, so they would open it up, see the first line, and they would decide to continue to read or not at that point.
Yeah.
Also, the first line of the email often shows up in that preview as well. So if you're thinking about how to write the subject line, you should also include the first line of your email as if it's part of the subject line. At this point, if you don't, it just depends on the niche. I know one company that was targeting pizzerias with a service to like advertise on Google Ads, and it literally just said pizza delivery as a subject line. I forgot how he leveraged that into it. It wasn't misleading. It was like pizza deliveries. Hey, I'm curious how you fulfill your pizza deliveries XYZ XYZ. Just to give an example, that wasn't actually from my campaign, so I can't speak of it too.
It's okay. I'm also a subject line with pizza delivery I would also open that as well too. I'd be very curious.
Um,
If not hungry.
Lastly, though, if you don't know what to put, generally speaking, what is the highest performing that I've seen that's still generic is just their name or their company name, alligator
Yeah.
brackets, your name or your company name, and it's the word introduction. So it would be Katya alligator brackets Garik introduction. That's something that's very generic that you should always add to your A/B split testing and see if you can beat that as your baseline. If you can't beat it, then just stick with that.
That's fantastic. Also love that you called it alligator brackets. I don't think that I don't know if that's like the technical name of it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I use them literally all the time. So that's hilarious. We've talked about like the cold outreach. I'm wondering, do you also recommend leveraging AI for email number 2?
Great question. Yeah, we do. So in email number 2, we generally use the way that we use AI in email number 2 is that we generally try to go with a deeper pitch. So in the first
Okay.
email, we're spending so much time introducing how we found them and what we do that's a little bit hard to not not go beyond like 200, 300 characters for giving a bigger pitch. But in the follow up email, you can actually say why you think that they're a good fit. So we'll use AI in a big prompt saying, this is what we do. This is the
Yeah.
summary about the client. So you scrape their LinkedIn and you scrape their website and you give them a summary based on what you scraped. So they know, the AI now knows who you are, what you do. They know the client, and you ask the AI, give me 3 examples of how our service or our product could help them specifically. And then I'll put
Mm.
that as 3 bullet points in the follow-up email saying, hey, by the way, wanted to clarify, the reason why I'm reaching out is because I think we can help you with 1, 2, 3.
Ooh, I like that journey for the second email as well too. I'm also glad that you have a path to the from the first to the second as well too, because cold out email outreach is fantastic. But if you don't know what to do with them next, I think then it can go really wrong. Great first open rates, and then it tanks.
Okay.
Now, automation is like the key that we're talking about as well, on
Is
top
it
of.
right if I expand just on one thing I said there?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
there's a gradient or a maxim that I want people who are doing this to keep in mind, that
Yeah.
with personalization is better than no personalization 90% of the time. But
Okay.
what's better than personalization is relevance. So the difference between
Uh-huh.
personalization versus relevance is, personalization could say, hey, I saw that you went to Penn State University. Crazy, buy my stuff. Like, it's personalized, but it's not relevant. It doesn't
That
help.
is awkward,
Yeah.
Garik.
But something that's relevant could be that, hey, I see that you've grown your business from 10 to 200 employees in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
As you're approaching your 30th year anniversary, have you thought about cementing your legacy and how you might want to set up your succession plan or exit from your company? That's a line that we actually use in some of our emails, that's both personalized, but more importantly, it's highly relevant to the question. So you should always ask yourself, how can I make this not just personal but also relevant? If you can't make it
Yeah.
relevant, then you can go with personal alone. But even then, it's better to also make it recent. You should personalize based on something that they did recently, if possible.
Yes.
So that's how you should prioritize how to personalize.
I like that. So it is the personalization and the relevancy. And actually, I'm really glad that you expanded on that as well too, because my question was going to be more along the lines of, we've talked about AI just kind of leveraging from a personalization standpoint, right? And you're looking for the relevancy part. But to me, what I hear is that you're really trying to automate what you would do if you had all the time in the world to research this person and then actually make that personal as well too. And I don't think that we talk about the automation that AI gives marketers at their fingertips with that. What other ways have you seen automation in action be really beneficial for marketers?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Is that you are still writing an email that a human being would write. You're saying, what would
Yes.
I write if I had 15 minutes for every single contact, but I'm going to do it
Yes.
10,000 times. Um,
Hmm.
that's the name of the game. And you can definitely write emails that are very personalized, very relevant, but are very robotic, and like those don't perform as well. But your question was how else do we use automation? Um,
Yeah. What other ways is AI allowing marketers to automate other things? Like, what other things can we automate? Because I think oftentimes, like, we're thinking about, AI is going to take over like writing because I no longer have a job because it's going to write all of my blogs. But like, if we hone in on the ability to leverage AI for automating these kind of tasks, these things that if we did have 15 minutes, this is where we would spend it. Like, what other automations have you seen at work that really are really going under the radar that people are just kind of missing in general?
so I think that the thing that AI can add into our processes, where before there was no other tool for the job, is, generally speaking, it allows us to automate decision making. Um, if the
Hmm.
decisions are, let's say, multiple choice. So to give an example of that, before, sometimes you create I brought up, scraping a LinkedIn search.
Yeah.
And maybe you look at that and then we actually have a process for evaluating how good a LinkedIn search is, by checking out all the results on page 1 and then all the results on page 70 if there's a page 70. So, and then we grade what percentage of those are actually our ICP. And if we find that there's a lot of people sneaking through that are not our ICP, then we'll add in AI as one step of the process to re-qualify them. So essentially, there's a
Okay.
binary static code qualification based on the filters, but then
Yeah.
there's softer AI qualification. And so the way that you do that is you feed all the data into AI, and you say, hey, AI, categorize them on a scale of 1 to some arbitrary number. And you shouldn't just do this like, on a scale of 1 to 10, and only if it's 9 or above, because you have to describe to the AI, here's what a category 1 means, here's what a category 2 means, here's what a category
Yeah.
3 means. And then you have it, you preferably are using 2 separate prompts. If you want to get fancy with it, you should use 2 separate prompts. One is where it's forced to describe its thinking first, because just like humans, AI makes the same cognitive mistake of commitment and consistency. So it's very
Yes.
hard for AI to change its thinking. So you want it to explain its reasoning and then give the conclusion. So we'll actually prompt AI twice and say, explain to me, start your sentence with, seeing that this person is blah, 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 then conclude on a scale of 1 to 4. And then the second AI is what just reduces that to a single number. And then we have a binary pass fail based on that second AI's number.
Okay.
Would it be, should I give a specific example? Or is that already kind of clear on the concept?
I always love examples. So hit me with a more specific example so we can unpack that as well too.
Perfect. So let me think. There's let's say that we're asking the AI if this company had redone their website in the last 2 years. And so we take a snapshot of like the Wayback Machine 2 years ago, and we take another snapshot
Yeah.
of the website today. We could ask the AI, how much has the website changed between these two points? Level 4 being that they have reworked the entire structure of the site.
Okay.
Number 3 being that they have changed the front end of the site significantly when you hold the two side by side. Number 2 is they have changed the variables for things like the logo and a few other things, but the look and feel is essentially the same. And number 1 being that they haven't changed anything. You then go over 30 examples and you say, did it correctly categorize based on my prompt? Did it correctly categorize them as me, a
Yeah.
human, would do it? Because you can audit. It's never a black box. It's always a black box, but it's always a black box you can audit. So you should always do that with a small sample set and then say, okay, this is
Yeah.
correct. This is how I would categorize it. Then you can scale it to 10,000 without auditing it. With being careful, but that's the steps. And so that's how we would create an arbitrary tier set and then have it categorize. And then if it's a 4, or let's say it's a 3 or above, we then mark it
Yeah.
as a pass for it to take the next step of the process.
Okay. I'm actually really glad that you gave that example. Maybe it's because my brain is wired to think about like the websites as well too. I also think it's such a great explanation of prompt engineering as well, that that like listeners could like literally walk away and take that into themselves as prompt engineers into Chat GPT as well too. My next thought though goes, well, this is fantastic, Garik. Like, I definitely want to implement this and use this. How do I do that? Like, what is the tool? What is I mean, and I don't like to be overly promotional at all on the podcast, but I love to learn about new tools that are going to let me leverage that. So tell me about how I can execute that, because I'm obviously not going to do OpenAI and go through all of that stuff if there's already a tool at play
Yeah.
that is going to allow me to do that.
Yeah. Well, obviously they should just pay us and we'll do all the work for them. But
The whole 9 yards, exactly.
obviously.
Link in the episode notes, my friend. Link in the episode notes.
But the best way is probably with a tool called clay.com. So if your audience hasn't heard
Okay.
of clay.com, it is very powerful for creating a lot of these steps. I would also point
Okay.
to, I'm going to be posting more content about Clay myself, but right now, if your audience wants to learn more about that, I would highly recommend Eric Nowoslowski. I referenced him before, but he would be a
Yeah.
great person to find tutorials on. Um, and what Clay essentially does is that you can add in the scraping, the enrichment, and the AI steps. You can put all that into it. Essentially, what it is, it's a spreadsheet where every column is another API call. And so that includes calls to OpenAI, it includes calls to LinkedIn, it includes calls to whatever to enrich the data and then prompt with AI in a specific set of steps. And one recommendation, though, if you're doing that, you should definitely set up as many of your own API keys as possible, exactly same as you would if you had Zapier or Make.com.
Yeah.
So you and you can search on YouTube how to find your how to create an OpenAI API key. You don't need to be proficient, technical to do this. Then you grab your own OpenAI API key, and you can just take that, plug into your Clay, and the subscription cost goes down significantly.
Okay. Ooh, I like that. These are some, you heard it here first, guys. These are some juicy tips that you're leaving us with. I like that. We're almost to the end, I promise, but I do have a couple more questions. One of my questions that I like to ask is an emerging trend question. And I think that as it pertains to AI, it's very relevant. So I'd love to hear from you. What kind of emerging trends are you seeing from an AI perspective that we should really like be perked up? Like, well, let's keep an eye on these particular things.
So one thing that I've said for a while, that's now turning more and more true, is that the AI, based on our current insights, is slowing down its rate of improvement. The rate of improvement from 3.5 to 4 is looking like it's significantly more than from 4 to 5. With that being said, that gets blown out of the water when these tools get unique insights. In other words, every exponential curve is an illusion. It's not. There is no such thing as a true exponential curve. It's always a stack of S curves stacked on top of each other. And so we need new paradigms, new ideas in order to actually continue the exponential growth. And we've really exhausted the idea at this point of more GPUs, more data will get us to that next level. We kind of ran out of data, and the number of GPUs, we're getting diminishing returns. So what that means for your audience is that it becomes, it's going to sound quaint, but that it's much more about the elbow grease of the execution with these AI models as opposed to waiting for AI models to improve. So it becomes a lot more about how good can you automate stuff, how good can you write engineering, but it's less about these tools, waiting for them to get better. Because the reality is, for marketing purposes, these AI tools are pretty much already good enough to do almost anything that you want them to do if you bring an engineer's mindset to it.
Ooh, that's a really, really fantastic point. The idea that the emerging trend is that AI is plateauing to the point where you need to now become an expert on, honestly, hacking it to really serve your purposes. It is no longer, and should no longer, just be as simple as like, let me use it for research. That's why we have Google, and maybe it's easier for some people to do that, but really hacking it and leveraging it so that you can maximize it. I think that's an interesting trend. I love that. Okay, now I have my final, and I promise then I will let you go. My final is, if you knew then what you know now, what is the marketing or non-marketing advice that you give yourself?
That's a really tough one, but I think what I would go with is, I'll go with the real one, even though it's a bit quaint, but it's
Okay.
it's if you are in a privileged enough position to be able to like choose what it is that you do, pick the channel, pick the medium that you actually enjoy. Like, I myself really like spreadsheets. I really like spreadsheets. I fucking love them. And if I could just spend more
I
of my
appreciate your
time,
honesty. I appreciate
if
your
I could,
honesty.
and so, like, for instance, with the integration like Make.com and stuff, I always put the intelligence into the spreadsheet, and I have the spreadsheet make the decisions, and then Make.com just executes on the decisions from the spreadsheet's formulas. Like that,
Yeah.
it's the neural switchboard. And if I could just spend all my time in that, I would, and I wish I had embraced that a little bit sooner. Is it? I really like leading a small team of amazing people, and I don't want to lead a bigger team doing lower skilled labor stuff. I want to lead a small
Yeah.
team doing the high skilled stuff, and then we can embrace AI, we can embrace automation, we can embrace these other tools um, to do the 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 grinding work. And I think it would be very different if I was differently made up. If I was somebody who just loved drawing the potential out of people and growing people. And I certainly do
Yeah.
love that. I love that, but it's not what I want to do 90% of every single day. There are some people that are very different. Like all they want to do is lead people and grow their potential, and that can be done through grinding work and instilling discipline and
Yeah.
giving people a vision. Like, but that's not what I want to do 90% of the time. And so find what is that you love and see how you can do more of it, because it's really been coming back to the stuff that I love building out this service.
I think that's really great advice. I think too often, especially from a career perspective, people think, world domination is the only option. Actually, there's totally different other levels, and not one of them is not better than the other. It is, you know, i- it's owning what it is that you love and not apologizing for it. So I think that that's fantastic, and what a great way to end the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing all of like the technical insights, the tips that you shared as well too. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Katya. It was an absolute pleasure.
Welcome back. I hope that you found this episode just as entertaining as I did. Entertaining and informative. You all know that I have a sweet spot for AI, so I'm just going to jump right into my key takeaways. My first one is personalization plus relevance equals a powerful outreach. Now, personalization always sticks out for me because I almost feel like it's a bit of a quote unquote hot take that isn't really a quote unquote hot take. Of course, personalization matters and it's effective, but the missing element truly is relevance. It's answering the why me in that outreach can make a world of difference. Understanding that with AI, we have the ability to tailor our communication for just that. It's clutch and can truly be a game changer. The example that we went over was researching someone on LinkedIn, for example, and looking at their last handful of posts. What have they engaged with and how have they commented? What are they posting also? And using that information to insert it into that email outreach. But it is also something that you can insert into any outreach, not just email. Now, a good prompt engineer would say something like this when it comes to when it comes to leveraging AI. Review the last 10 posts and evaluate the engagement and relevancy to my brand, assuming that the large language model that you're using already has an understanding of your services. And if not, this is where you put that information in. Insert that information in this email outreach, and bam, you have personalized outreach that includes relevance, making it more powerful and engaging. Key takeaway number two: automate or not to automate decision making? That is the question. Now, during our conversation, Garik talks about this transformative potential of AI and automating the analytical aspects of marketing, which helps in efficiently processing large data sets to determine the most qualified leads and strategies. Now, before you get scared from the idea that AI can make decisions, fret not, my friends. That's not what we're talking about here. Let's be honest. As marketers, we are inundated with numbers and data sets and trying to analyze and evaluate the story that this information is telling us. So let AI analyze and identify, not determine the patterns it sees. Couple that with historical information, sprinkle in some behaviors, buying trends, and just kind of overall preferences, and watch out, you have cooked yourself a casserole called predictive analytics. Now, this process also doesn't remove you from it. What it does is it helps you collapse time. what would normally take you kind of like a week of uninterrupted time, which in my world means no meetings. And what world do we live in where that's actually a thing? But either way, it takes what would take you a week of uninterrupted time into a couple of days, and sometimes when you're really good, even less time. So it's not about it making the decisions for you, but it is about automating and evaluating and informing the data so that you don't have to synthesize all of it. It's a little turbo boost. Key takeaway number 3, you too can be a coder, or do you even need to pretend to be one? So, AI has turned us all into coders that don't need to know code to actually get things done. While we didn't talk about all of the examples, um, a few that came to mind where you would traditionally need to know code, but now you don't, are things like segmentation, personalization, call back to key takeaway number 1, lead scoring, qualification, email campaign optimization, content creation, customer service, chatbots, predictive analytics, and more. But that's a good chunk list for you right now. And I am sure there is more, but I assume, like me, your head must be just kind of spinning rounds a bit from all of that. That's a lot of stuff that AI can do, and I'm sure you're thinking, but how? Also, we take it one step at a time, my friends. So I'm going to drill into one to provide a little bit more context. We've already talked about how it can be used for content, and we touched a little bit on the predictive analytics. I want to dig into lead scoring, something very close to my heart. Lead scoring traditionally is based on developing algorithms or entering in values based on interaction data, right? You're doing this. I'd be going in attribute by attribute and entering in those algorithms. The next level of that is an interface that doesn't really require the code, but it is also still not AI. So we have definitely made improvements, and you don't always need code for that. This is exactly why I selected this particular example, right? Because it doesn't always have to go from code to AI. There is an in between. So for me, that's setting up parameters in marketing engagement, also known as Pardot. It's really tough to get on the marketing engagement bandwagon. Pardot is just what I know. It tells you exactly how long I've been around as a marketer, that I'm still calling it Pardot. But anyways, it's setting up the parameters in Pardot or whatever marketing automation tool you use. With AI tools, you can automatically score leads by analyzing interaction data and predicting the likelihood of a conversation, or not a conversation, the likelihood of a conversion. You have more at your fingertips. You would set up the tool to automatically adjust the score and therefore serve up only the juiciest leads to that sales team of yours, which makes us all winners. Happy sales team, happy revenue stream. What did you take away from today's episode? I want to hear. Let's keep this conversation going. A very special thank you to my podcast editor, Johnny Ike, and thanks to you for spending your time with me today. Until next time, may the conversation flow, the laughter linger, and the outlook remain optimistic but grounded in reality. This is Katya, signing off.